All right, so for today's video, we are starting with statistics. We are going to be working on dot plots and how we can analyze that data. Previously, you've learned how to build or create a dot plot, so now we're going to be taking that a step farther and analyzing that data. Before we start, we have some vocabulary terms. Many of these are ones that you've already heard of, but we're going to review them anyways. The first being an outlier, and an outlier is just that. It's kind of an outside data value. By definition, it is the value that is much greater or much less than the rest of the data values in the data set. So it's a data point that is either on the low end, like very, very, very low, or very, very, very high. Second vocab term is mean. We also know that as the average, and that is the sum of the data values divided by the number of data values in the set. So that's how we find the mean. Then we have the median, which is the middle data value when the data set is ordered numerically. So when it's in order, what value is in the middle. And mode is the most frequent, so that's what we see the most of. And then the range is just the difference between the lowest and the highest data values. So we have one example here where we are going to analyze two dot plots. So it says the dot plots below show the heights of 15 high school basketball players and 15 high school softball players. So we're going to look at these two dot plots here. So we've got this one right here. Excuse me. Change the font here. There we go. Okay, so we've got this dot plot here of softball players, and then we've got this one of basketball players. So the first thing that we need to look at is the question of what do we notice about the mode of the data set. So again, mode is the most frequent value that we see. So when I look here at this dot plot, it's literally just whichever value has the most dots. That's how many people, in this case, how many softball players are this height. And we can see here that 5'4" is the mode of the softball players. So what this means in terms of this dot plot is that the most common height of the softball players is 5'4". So I'm just going to put SB for softball, and that would be 5'4". And then over here in basketball, it looks like 5'8", because that value right here has the most students that are most players that are 5'8". So pretty simple as far as how we find the mode. It's just what do you see the most of. Then over here we want to look at the median. So what do we see as kind of that middle value where most of the softball players and most of the basketball players' heights are around? So when we look here, again, going back to that definition, how do we find the median? Well, we know that right now these values are in order according to this number line. So we just need to start from the lowest value and the highest value and work our way inward. And as we do that, we find that the median is 5'4". So far the mode and the median are the same. And for basketball players, again, we're going to find the median. So starting with the low value and working our way in. And I like to cross off because it makes it easier for me to see where the median is. And it is this particular value right here, 5'8". So just like with the mode of the basketball players, the median is also 5'8". And the last question of how we can analyze this dot plot is looking at the spread. And when you hear this term spread, it really just implies the range. So how is that data spread out along this dot plot? So when I look at the softball players' dot plot, I notice that it starts with this height right here, which would be, which would be 4 foot, I'll put it up here, 4 foot 11, and then 5 foot 6. So the spread here is from 4 foot 11 to 5 foot 6, which would mean that the range of the data is 7 inches. And then over here for the basketball players, it ranges from 5 foot 2 to 6 foot. So there's a much greater range here with the basketball players. So that would be for softball players. Basketball players would be from 5'2" to 6 foot, where the range is 10 inches. So what I'd like to have you do on your own is to just try this one your turn question where you are analyzing these two dot plots. If you have any questions, remember we can talk about them tomorrow.